But before you even give us your thoughts, let me bring in some of our front pages as the news has been developing, starting from Sunday. Now, if you look at the Sunday Standard, this is what they wrote. Grounded president. Remember, this is just after the address. And it is interesting to look at the front page, just to look back a bit and into today's paper. But on the Sunday Standard, grounded president, busy at home. They're saying in his first year in office, President Ruto was seemingly on a shuttle diplomacy, visiting 38 countries in what he said were engagements that would help drive the economy and make Kenyans' lives better. This was amid fury over the course of the presidential travels. Now, in the last 3 weeks, he has barely moved out of Nairobi, handling protests and political fires in his Kenya Kwanza camp. You may disagree or agree, but let's fast forward to today's papers from page quickly. To fire or to keep. Remember, a number of critics coming out on what the president said. To fire or keep, Ruto's cabinet dilemma is the front page of today's paper. And President William Ruto faces probably the biggest test of his presidency on who to fire from the cabinet. Will he fire? Let me hear from you, gentlemen, in a number of things that are coming on the table. Your general remarks. Suba Chruchill, what do you make of the current affairs development into this evening?
Thank you very much. First of all, before I even answer the questions that you have raised, we must, first of all, try to understand the context.
Yes.
The period leading to what we are now experiencing, first of all, started with the shooting of a magistrate at the Makadara Law Courts. Then we had, the demonstration setting in, running for 3 good weeks. And even after the president, said that he would not sign the finance bill 2024, the public still did not, get satisfied with that. And part of the reason is because increasingly we are witnessing a situation of the crisis of confidence, lack of confidence and trust in our institutions and individual leaders. We also witnessed, for example, after the attack of the magistrate who later on unfortunately died, we saw, institutions, court buildings, both in Eldoret and Nairobi, invaded by protesters and that for me was significant because it means that there are people in this country, citizens of this country, that have an issue. But more importantly, we saw Parliament for the first time in our history overrun by protesters after very spirited efforts and attempts by the security agents to keep them at bay. And so we are facing a deficit trust in our leadership. And all arms of government seem to have an issue in terms of, enjoying the trust and confidence of the public. Back to your question, I think the president, in my view, is grappling to regain control. When you saw him even, pleading with the Gen Zs that, I'm ready to meet you in your space, I saw, in my view, a head of state that is struggling to regain control or to be in charge of things that he somehow lost control of. And it is good that, the Gen Zs gave him audience.
Okay.
Of course, he was asked very tough questions. And those questions should send a very powerful message, in my view, to government and to the president that Kenyans that he leads today, the Kenyans that President Ruto leads today, are completely different from the Kenyans that President Uhuru led a few years ago, completely different from the Kenyans that Kibaki led a few years ago. But unfortunately, it seems that the current president is still using the playbook that was used when Kenya attained independence, of containing, dissent.
Okay.
Today's generation is very bold, and I must congratulate the Gen Zs for taking up their place in the national discourse of this country and announcing in the most bold manner that has ever been seen in this country that they are here to determine their own destiny and to be part of the conversation, because our own president has a habit of inviting people to the conversation. Now the people he keeps on inviting to the conversation have come and said, here we are, and we'll do it in our own way.
All right.
On X and so on and such platforms, and the president has to engage. So that for me is very critical. Remember, the military is out of the barracks, not because they are battling a foreign army, but because the civilian authority appears to have lost the legitimacy, to govern, and has to be propped up by the military in order to stabilize. And that for me is very, very significant.
All right, quite a way to start. Eric, okay, when we last spoke, I think the president was yet to address the nation, and one of the